What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to the workshop. Now, in a previous video you would have seen me turn this bowl from the unknown log. Well, upon further investigation, it is unknown no more. This is hawthorn, or also known as whitethorn. And in Ireland, whitethorn is no mere tree. So what better than to have a bowl with a great story. So let's jump in with a little story just to add to this bowl and to this log. And what's more fun than to have a piece that has a story attached to it? You see, in Ireland, hawthorn, or whitethorn as it's known, is known by many other names such as the lonely bush, the noble bush, the fairy bush, or the mass bush, and for many different reasons. You see, Ireland has an ancient history, and it is a land of myth and legends, and I think some of that has seeped into the DNA of the Irish people. And we pride ourselves on all our sophistication and modern ideas, but still the superstition holds sway over the people, and especially when it comes to the fairy folk. Lone whitethorn bushes are known as fairy bushes, and people dare not touch them or dig them up even today. In fact, there was a famous case in 1999 when they were building a motorway between Galway and Limerick. There's a famous hawthorn bush in County Clare. It was known as the place where the Kerry fairies would meet the Connacht fairies to do battle. And a famous historian at the time warned the people building the motorway that they should not interfere with this bush, or a sticky end would be visited upon them, and anybody who drove the motorway over the spot where the bush was uprooted could also meet an equally sticky end. So nobody dared touch the bush. The motorway had to be diverted. So you could imagine being the digger driver and being asked, "Hey Tom, jump up the digger there and dig up that bush." No way, I'm not digging up that bush. And many a person has risked in Ireland being sacked for refusing to touch these trees. So you will often find a Y in the road with a little island on it, and there will be a fairy bush standing right in the middle of it, because nobody will cut a branch, harm a leaf, or even dig one up and risk the wrath of the fairy folk to this day. Now, there are many of these famous fairy bushes all over Ireland, and not too far from me. In fact, I can see the mountains out my front door, the Cumra Mountains. On the way to Mahon Falls, where the waterfall is, there's a small incline, and at the bottom of this incline is a fairy bush, and it's a fairly famous one because if you stop your car at the fairy bush, turn off the engine and take it out of gear, the car will roll uphill. That's right, and people say they don't believe in fairies, but there's video of this. You can Google it, you can watch it on YouTube. We always bring, if there's any visitors come over, especially American friends, bring them to this spot, tell them the story of the fairies, and then show them the car rolling back up the hill, and it is quite hilarious and fun to see. So yeah, if you say you don't believe in fairies, you've got to come check this magic road out. So you can start to see the significance of this bowl and this unknown log, which is unknown no more. There are countless stories across Ireland of misfortune that has befallen people who dare touch lonely whitethorn trees, or fairy bushes as they're known. There's a story of a man who swung an axe, and before the axe even struck the tree, his nose began to bleed and he was bedridden for the next 3 months. And there's countless such stories. Now, they were also known as mass bushes. During penal times in Ireland, it was illegal for Catholics to gather and hold mass. So they would hold mass at these sacred sites, these lone fairy bushes, which gave them extra significance and extra meaning, which is why nobody will still touch them to this day. So they are still hollow ground and sacred places. And it's quite an interesting bowl and quite an interesting story. This one, fortunately, was not a lonely tree. If it was a lonely tree, it certainly would not bear chainsaw marks, and it would not have been left by the side of the road. It would be untouched, as nearly all of them still are to this day. It is quite hilarious to think that entire motorway projects have been moved because of these trees. You will see them sitting lonely in farmers' fields untouched. When everything else is cleared from the field, these trees will be left alone. Often you will see them sitting on ancient sites of ring forts and stuff, and they will be called the sacred trees. It is quite fascinating, to say the least. So revered were the fairies and feared were the fairy folk in Ireland that they didn't even refer to them by name. So in Gaelic, they were often referred to as Nadini Usal, or the other folk, the other crowd. And people would say things like, oh, the other crowd did it, or he was taken by the other crowd. So afraid were they even to mention the name fairies. And there is plenty of stories of rooms in houses where the fairy folk were supposed to have entered being boarded up and locked up, and the room forevermore never entered inside in the house, which is quite fascinating to think about. Now, not so far from this very workshop, about a 10-minute walk in that direction, is a famous one of these trees. Again, it's a mass bush where people would gather during penal times to hold mass. It was high on a hill. Lickettstown village, which is Ireland's oldest village, or known as Ireland's oldest settlement, I believe. This is where this particular bush is, and people would gather there to say mass, and they could see the soldiers approaching because they were on the high ground, and they could scatter when they saw them coming. Again, it was a sacred site, again associated with the fairy folk, and has a religious significance as well. And I found a poem. I'm not sure, it seems to be associated with that, but I couldn't get to the roots of it. But I'll leave links to this below, but it's quite a cool one. Listen to this. By the road near a village, an old thorn tree grows, which in springtime is white with many flower snows. The rich green sward round it seems laughing in glee, yet no dance is let off near that hoary old tree. I asked an aged peasant what hollowed the ground, why so fresh and so green the grass grew all around, why the people past it looked down thoughtfully, as though some sacred memory clung to that tree. Said he, long before yonder chapel did use, or its golden cross glistened in heaven's blue skies, when around them our people no refuge could see, the priest said his mass neath that hawthorn tree. There the maid and the matron, the young and the fair, the boy with his brown curls, the sire with his grey hair, for a while from the earth as its sorrows were free, as they knelt at the altar beneath that old tree. There oft have I prayed by my old father's side, there I knelt on the night that my dear mother died. There I first saw my wife, then sir, you see, why so twine our heartstrings around that old tree. So there you go, guys. There is a story to go with this bowl, and it is no ordinary bowl or no ordinary story, and this is no ordinary tree. So it was quite interesting to find out that this is actually hawthorn or whitethorn, and the significance that that holds here in Ireland. So I'm going to turn another bowl from this, or maybe a vase, in an upcoming video, and it is quite nice to know that there is a real story attached to these items. So there you go, guys, a little bit different for you there, some myth and some legend and some story. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the next one. Take it easy.